Welcome to another installment of Practice by Numbers with Front Office Rocks. I'm Laura and I'm here with Rohit. And I wanted to introduce something about Practice by Numbers that I love. It was actually an eye-opening experience for me when we in my dental office started working with Practice by Numbers early in January. And I'm hoping other offices can relate to what I'm about to say. But we're always focused on new patients. But our practice has been staying kind of flat. And I guess I probably should have figured this out, but with Practice by Numbers, when we got connected and they started showing us what's going on in our practice, it became evident about what was happening in our office. And it was really that we were losing more than we thought out the back door. Every dental office has this problem. You have patients that move, patients that lose insurance, patients that pass away, whatever the case may be. We lose patients out the back door, but we tend to focus on the new patients, which is important, but we also should be, we spend so much money to get these patients in, we really should be making sure our patients are staying in the practice. So my effort at my office this year is going to be reactivation, getting patients back. I mean, this is a great source of new patients. I mean, if you haven't seen them in 18 months, they're basically like a new patient. So we're going to jump into Revenue IQ reactivation here in Practice by Numbers, because one of the things about Practice by Numbers is they just don't tell you how great or bad you're doing. There's a resource to actually help your team now get on the phones and reach out to these patients. So Rohit, would you like to show us a little bit about how reactivation works for the team members, of how they can find the patients and reach out and get them activated back in the practice?
Yes, absolutely. And thanks a lot, Laura, for being on another video with Practice by Numbers. And as Laura was saying, most practices have that leaky bucket where you have new patients coming in from the top and you have a hole at the bottom where new patients are falling out. Now, if your hole at the bottom is bigger than the hole at what's coming in, your practice is going to start shrinking. And every practice that I've talked to, they do get surprised that, oh, they're losing patients, but they don't get that surprised because they know they're losing patients. And the reason why most practices don't implement a reactivation program is because it's a pain to implement. You have to call on a regular basis. You have to keep track of whom you've called, what was the outcome, should you call that patient again or not. And people have implemented paper sheets, like printing it out and making notes there. Those get stale. You have done Excel spreadsheets. That doesn't work very well either. And because of all that stuff, a reactivation program doesn't get implemented because, as everybody knows, most dental offices are understaffed. And they don't have the resources to go through every single list and create them over and over again. So
and I would also add to that, sorry, that's what you get for being on a video with me. I would also add to that, even if they're not understaffed, reactivation calls are probably lowest on the list of things that we prioritize at the front desk. We've got claims to call on, we've got patients to confirm, we've got treatment to fill. And when we do reactivation calls, it's kind of monotonous, and you have to be okay with objection, and you have to be able to motivate the patient to come in. And so we can train your staff on how to do that, but a lot of times the staff they don't like doing them, and they go to the bottom of the list, and there's no way for us to make sure it's happening. Now with Practice by Numbers, we're able to now watch that it is happening. So just understanding that this isn't necessarily the most fun thing to do, but it's so necessary.
Yeah, it's important, absolutely important. So let's jump right here. So here we have a practice, and when you click on reactivation, it will bring you and put it down automatically for last 1 year. So you can say patients that you have not seen. I think this is going from 12, or I think this is going from 2 years to 18 months to 24 months. Right? That's what it's going at. And it will give you a list of every single patient that has not been seen in the practice for over 18 months, but less than 30 months. And you can create this list to whatever number you want. Now, why is it important? And look at this practice. They're already making tons of phone calls. And why does this happen? Why is it hard to implement this? Because, again, you have to make notes on what happened. You have to keep track of whom you called. Reactivation should be a no-brainer. You should be able to go in, go to this list, make 10 to 20 calls every day. Once you have what you have to say, once you're trained on how to leave that message or how to talk to that person, it should be a pretty mechanical exercise from that point onwards. Come, run this list, and call 20 people from the top of this list. So this office has been making these calls. So now what I should do is I will come here and say, don't show me any patients that I've talked to in the past 3 months. And I'm going to hit search. Here's a whole new set of patients that I haven't talked to in the past 3 months that I can give them a call. Now, once I call them and I mark them that I've talked to them, these patients won't show on this list for another 3 months. Making it easy for you to know which patients to call, because if you just cycle through them, you should be calling patients on a regular basis. Now, you're not going to be able to get through, if you have 1,000 inactive patients, all of them in 1 month or in 6 months, but you keep calling them till the patient tells you, stop calling me or I have moved.
Yeah, I just wrote an article about that. Don't stop calling them until they tell you to stop, because nobody looks out for this part of the patients except for us. So we need to make sure they understand it's a priority, and there's, multiple ways to do it. And there's certain things your staff should be saying. So you want to make sure they're trained, but never stop trying to reactivate your patients, because more than likely they're not going anywhere else. They've gotten busy, they've forgotten, they're embarrassed, whatever, and they just haven't come back to you.
Right. And with this, you just make this list and go in and make a call. So how simple is that? Let's click on this. So I'm going to click on home, Revenue IQ, reactivation, and hit search. That's all I did. 3 or 4 clicks, you have a list of patients that you want to call. And if your front office, somebody in your front office can't do 3 clicks and make 10 calls, then we have a problem.
Yes. And the other thing too that I like about this is I have multiple people making calls from my office. And like Rohit was saying, is if you print out a report from your practice management software, that gets stale. So with this, we can have, one person calling on page 2, one person calling on page 1. They can put their notes in, we can update it in the software. And it's really easy because we want someone to sit down. I've got 10 minutes. I've got to make some calls. Let me get on the phones, not having to dig around trying to find the information. Let me just have it right here in front of me. Let me update what happened. I get called. I have to go do a consult or check a patient out. I can come back and keep working the list. Anything we can do to help our team do it more efficiently and effectively is what we want.
Right.
And then can you show them, because one of the big things for me is I'm an office manager and I try to hold my team accountable to making these calls because they're not fun to do. So I ask my team to do 20 calls a day, whether it's outstanding treatment or reactivation. But there's a performance part on here that any employees watching this or any managers and doctors should know that now as we're going through these and I'm leaving messages or I'm getting patients, to schedule, I can now keep track of how we did with the scheduling, who I got to schedule. And if you scroll down to the bottom, I can actually show how many calls I made. So as a manager, we can now say, all right, we're expecting you to make whatever it is in your office, 10 calls, 20 calls, maybe some days are busier than others. So at the end of the week, we want you to be at 50 or 100 calls, but now we have a way to track it. Because as an office manager, as a doctor, many times we don't know what's going on up front. And this will be a way to really be able to have a good discussion with your team to say, all right, we need to reactivate, and here's what we need to make sure that happens. And now we have a way to track that.
Right. And it can, and we're just talking about reactivation in this time, but it can track all your different kinds of calls, reactivation, treatment scheduled, and recall scheduled. And the good thing also is that when you do make a call to a patient in one or the other category, let's say you made a call to a patient for recalls, and you call the patient from the recall category and you go into a patient reactivation, the same call will show up there as well, so that you're not calling the patient from multiple lists on multiple times. So you want to know when was the last time you talked to that patient, period, no matter if it was for reactivation or for recall or for treatment.
That's actually really good. I actually like that because I have multiple people making calls. So if you're not reactivating, we have a lot of videos on this. And so look for one of our videos or reach out to Rohit about the fact that you can see, like we did, how many patients we're losing on a monthly basis versus what we're gaining, which motivated me to get my team on the phones to let's reactivate these patients. They fell in love with you for some reason in the beginning. Let's get them back in and give your team the tools that they need to get on the phones and reactivate patients. So if you want help with how to implement this in your practice or how to get somebody to know where to click to find the report, please reach out to us. But like I said in other videos, The day we logged into Practice by Numbers, by the end of that day, my team was already on the phones using these lists. So it's something that you can easily implement as soon as you sign up with Practice by Numbers. So hopefully that will help your office, reactivate or get going on trying to reactivate patients who've disappeared.
And also, being involved in two offices, two of my wife's offices, it's not that straightforward. So to make those calls and say the right words, and Laura, I'm sure your videos and your service can help them train their staff on what are the right things to say.
Yes, definitely. And the biggest thing is that your team needs to understand the why. So when you sit down and look at these numbers, it becomes a little bit more evident as to why it's important that the patients need to get in. And that's what we're here to help you with. So definitely reach out to Front Office Rocks. If you know that you need to reactivate, but your team doesn't know the why and how to do it, that's what we're here to help for.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Laura.
Thank you.